Greetings and konnichiwa, and welcome back to the Onyx Tavern vlog series on Ressha Sentai ToQger. Today we will be discussing Station 16, The Dangerous Extraordinary Ressha. And before we get started, I want to apologize for this vlog. Unfortunately, I'm in the process of packing stuff up, and hopefully we'll be moving within the next month or so. So right now, my room is a mess, so I didn't feel appropriate to go ahead and just have all that in the background for you guys. So for the time being, we will be doing the ToQger vlogs this way, like my traditional podcasts. Maybe I'll go ahead and keep that for future broadcasts, but for right now, this is what we're going to go ahead and do, so I apologize for you not being able to see me today. But let's go ahead and talk about Station 16 and what happens. This episode, fairly straightforward plot, and actually does pick up from the events of Station 15. As you recall, in Station 15, General Schwartz intervened and kidnapped or rescued, however you want to go ahead and put it, the Hammer Shadow. And in this episode, it picks up where he is using the Hammer Shadow to essentially fuel his Shadow line into basically what's going to be called the Dream Train. And the goal in this episode is for him to kidnap a bunch of children onto the train, bring their fantasies to life, and then through Hammer Shadow's ability, crush all those dreams and absorb the darkness for a scheme that is not particularly revealed in this episode, but hopefully we'll find out shortly. That it seems to trail off when Schwartz is trying to reveal his ultimate goal here. And of course, the ToQger have to go ahead and intervene, but Takachi and Kagura basically end up teaming up with a older sister to one of the girls, Aoi, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I'm still really bad with my Japanese, to rescue her younger brother. It's a fairly simple episode. There isn't much in, say, character development or realizations up until the end, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. But I want to talk about some issues on the episode, some minor things, and just things in general. First of all, the episode actually starts out and it has this theme going along through it with food. What actually happens is at the beginning, Wagon is taking orders for her to go out and get food for the ToQger. Now, I first want to point out how odd this is, because it was my estimation that what was happening is that they had like some sort of replicator or food storage on board the Rainbow Line somewhere. That has proven to be false, apparently, because she's going to go out and get the food and bring it back. Which I have this image of, you know, her just going to the local 7-Eleven or the convenience store to get this food and then come back, and of course Wagon... I mean, again, Wagon is Wagon, and very inconspicuous is kind of what she is. So it's an interesting point that she's interacting with the rest of the world. I don't know if she can be seen or unseen, and then, of course, that raises the question, is she stealing the food? Is she charging it? And, of course, where are they getting the money? This goes all back to the previous questions I had about the Rainbow Line, which 16 episodes in, we have not been able to go ahead and have answered for us. But, you know, the food plays a big role into it. It's the coda at the end, and it kind of plays into what happens to three of the ToQger. As Takachi, Kagura, and Aoi, they all have to go ahead and rescue the kids, because what happens is that the Shadow Line will come in, the children see it, because, of course, they're children. We've already established that in this universe. And once they get in, they will fulfill their fantasies. And the train that we have has actually 3 compartments that I also want to talk about. The first compartment is basically an indoor water park that the kids are wishing for. The second compartment is basically a dining car in which they can eat whatever food they want. And the third car is basically a air and space museum. Now, in the second car, what happens is when the ToQger are trying to save the children, they jump onto the Shadow Line. Now, somehow through this process, Takachi, Kagura, and Aoi, who has come along for the ride, are knocked unconscious and thus are not thrown into the fantasy, whereas Wright, Mio, and Hikari are, and they're found in the dining car eating food. And of course, that's what Wright does all the time. And they're really oblivious to what's going on. Now, that kind of makes sense because that's what's happening with the children. The children are oblivious to what's happening because their greatest fantasies and desires are being fulfilled. Small-minded, but again, they're kind of children. And of course, going to indoor water park and eating whatever you want, I get that. Air and Space Museum, not so much. The child that's the younger brother here, Kakeru, got it, is dreaming of like flying an airplane, but he sells for a remote control in the Air and Space Museum. Pretty limited, but again, I guess that's more of a budget thing than a story thing. But anyway, the 3 ToQger are in there, and again, what fits in is we believe that they don't have their memories, so they're reverted to the age of children, so of course they'd be pulled into this whole thing. But what's odd is that not until the end does Kagura actually consider trying to snap them out of what's going on here. Really, they're completely wasted in the episode, and they spend the entire episode just eating food, while the other 2 ToQger are trying to convince Aoi to have an imagination, which we'll get into that as well. A lot of odd continuity things I actually talk about in this episode. But that's basically what they're doing, and again, it's not until the end that they help, and I find that incredibly lazy way of writing them out of the story. Yes, it fits in with the characters that we've been given, but you think she would try a little bit harder earlier in the episode. So let's talk about the character of Aoi, who is in this episode, and there are a couple of things about her that I don't particularly get. So she gets wrangled into this thing because her younger brother is kidnapped, and she goes after them. Now, the first thing is that she gets, again, how she gets into this is she sees the ToQger and attacks them, assuming they are the kidnappers. Because they look suspicious, is what she said. There is so much dumb to that I'm going to talk about it, because I think it's worth talking about. First of all, consider that we're 16 stations into the series here. Now, if we were to equate that and say maybe these events happen on a weekly basis, this is like once a week something like this happens. That means that for 4 months, the ToQger have been around the city, saving the city. They were just captured by police, and you think that'd be something that would probably go ahead and make the news and whatnot and stuff. And yet this girl doesn't know anything about it. Granted, you can say that she doesn't watch the news and everything or read the newspaper, but I'm willing to bet that she's on social media and knows about the ToQger and what they've been doing for the last several months, not to mention the giant robot fights. But again, there's some debate about that, and we'll talk about that about this episode too. And of course, the most bonehead thing of all is that this woman seems to be maybe in her late teens, early 20s. You know, I mean, she's obviously still living at home. She's got younger brothers, maybe about less than a decade younger than her, something like that. And she thinks the ToQger are the villains. She has grown up in a world that for the last 38 years, the Super Sentai have been around. 38 years of Super Sentai, and she thinks the ToQger are the bad guys. How dumb is this girl? Seriously, how dumb is she to think about that? And yes, you can go on, they're not in the same continuity, but I call BS on that, because it is. Let's just get over it. She knows who the Super Sentai are. She should know who the ToQger are regardless. Why does she think they're kidnappers? It was a flimsy justification to get her into this situation. And how does this actually pay off? Now, what happens is they actually use her to help rescue her younger brother, where she really doesn't do anything. This is a Koaga story that ends up really becoming a shared story. It's almost like they wrote this for her, but then had to split it somehow to get this other girl in, who I suspect she probably tried out for the role of ToQger or somebody else and didn't get it, and as consolation they gave her this episode. That's just a speculation on my part. Regardless, what they do next is that they're going to go ahead and search for the kids after they get knocked off the train by General Schwartz, who, by the way, throws them out, doesn't try to kill them when they're demorphed, And at no point does Schwartz actually realize there's 3 of the ToQger on the train trying to kill them while they're essentially brainwashed. So, for as great as Schwartz may be of a villain, he is kind of dumb in this episode, I will go ahead and admit. Anyway, so they want to use the police Ressha to track down the train because it's the fastest, as we previously established. But Aoi wants to come along with them, and they're like, well, if you have imagination, you can see the train. If you can't see a train, you can't board it. So they spend the episode trying to, or spend part of the episode trying to get her to have an imagination so that she can see the police Ressha. I'm calling BS on this too, because just because she can't see it doesn't mean she can't board it, right? We've already established that the villains can get on the train, and I would imagine they don't have much imagination. And even if she can't see it, she also can't get on without a rainbow pass. They only have 2 rainbow passes, so how are they able to get her on without the rainbow pass? And then the next point here is just because she can't see it doesn't mean she can't get on, right? I'm sure if you blindfolded her, whether she had imagination or not, she could get onto the train. I believe at some point we did see him bring an unconscious person onto a train, or maybe that's my mind playing tricks on me, but I imagine you can still get her on in case if they don't see it. I mean, just because I don't see a car doesn't mean I can't get into the car. Unless you're trying to say that it physically manifests itself, and in that case, then the battles with the trains actually mean nothing, and they can phase through. So you're saying that if she doesn't have imagination, you can board it. What, are you just going to disappear in the midair? And will she phase right through it? None explained. So we spend a good portion trying to get her to have imagination. She sees it, gets onto the police Ressha, and the ToQger do all the work, and she really doesn't do anything in the episode. And at the end, we see her watching the battle with her brother, so I'm assuming she has not seen the battle before. Now, I guess you could say that ties in she doesn't know the ToQger are heroes, but then you also have to say that when they are people and morphed, you can't see them, but we know that is a lie. Mio's had a boyfriend, and Takachi and the kid, and all that kind of stuff. So that is also suspect here. So this episode just doesn't really make any sense in regards to this character and even their established continuity. And their established continuity makes no sense. It still doesn't make sense that they're trying to get her to have an imagination only for them to have her do nothing. And again, they could have easily brought her on without it. And again, she did nothing. Takachi was driving the police Ressha, which I'm sure you could have gotten Conductor to do that. You know, why didn't they think to use Conductor? You know, one of their allies, their mentor and whatnot. So yeah, I think I hit up on all the main points. The episode doesn't make sense. Frankly, it's not that interesting of an episode. I mean, the girl that plays Aoi is pretty cute, but that's about it. But I think the most significant thing that we have at the end of the episode is that Wagon reports to Conductor that something came for them, which is in a little black box, and he and Ticket take a look at it and find out that it is a new Ressha and a new Morpher. Now, because of spoilers and everything, I know this is going to go to ToQger, and we actually see him at the end of the episode. What happens is that Conductor's kind of playing around with it, and then we fade into a shot of ToQger to the camera, which is the oddest way I've ever seen to introduce a Six Ranger of the concept. I guess it's maybe to tease the audience, to say, hey, we're going to go ahead and have a new character, make sure you check back. But it's only like 2 weeks after, so it's like... not even, like, if it was like maybe they went hiatus for like 3 months or something, then yeah, maybe I could see that. But you're only talking from June 8th, I think, was the original air date of this episode, to June 22nd, which is when the next episode airs. And I'm assuming that's going to be when they introduce ToQger into the series. But what is also very interesting is 2 things I brought up. First of all, Wagon has the Morpher. Where she got it is not made clear at this point, but it was sent to her. Now, does that mean that somebody's delivering to the train, that there's a pickup point, that there's a P.O. box somewhere? Not explained at this point. Hopefully we'll get an explanation. And Ticket makes reference to the higher-ups. So it occurred to me that whatever's happening here is going beyond just the Rainbow Line. That there may be a base out there with a command staff and other heroes and who knows what that are, I wouldn't say controlling the Rangers, but it seems like they have some sort of infrastructure, at least somebody who's able to make morphers and new Zords, which we'll talk about that, I guess, once we get more information. But what we do know, based on what Ticket has said, is that somebody is out there giving orders to the Conductor, it seems, and providing new technologies for them. And we just got to see what happens from that point. So there we are. That's about all I have to go ahead and say about the episode. So next time we will talk about Station 17 and supposedly the introduction of the next ToQger. Anyway, thank you guys for listening. Have a good evening. The tavern is now closed.